Governor Terry McAuliffe.
Well, thank you, Jake, and thank you for all being with us here today. I appreciate it. This is another one of our Zoom webinars that we're doing to roll out another very serious policy proposal. And today we're talking about rural Virginia and how we rebuild rural Virginia. We have a lot of big challenges, and we have some great experts with us today. We've got Jordan Miles up there on the right screen, Buckingham, Board of Supervisors. I thank you, Jordan, for being with us. We've got, of course, Mary Biggs for Montgomery County Supervisor. We got America's Mayor with us today. We got Mayor Ed Towns of South Boston. I thank the three of you because you deal with these, and I've spoken a lot to you over the years. You deal with all these rural issues every single day. And I don't have to tell all of the viewers we have with us today and how difficult COVID has been for really everybody, but it has had a real tremendous impact in our rural communities. And we got to really rebuild. We have about 1 million Virginians today who live in our rural communities. You think how important our rural communities are. Just take agriculture, which is our biggest industry. We have about 8 million acres that are under farm right now today, providing what we need here in Virginia and feeding the rest of America. Really important businesses for us. But we've seen, as you all know, over the course of not only here in Virginia, but around the country in rural areas, we've seen a lot of our young talent who have left rural areas because they don't think they have an economic future there. And we've got to make sure that we're rebuilding education, giving the skills necessary. We need to be doing a lot more on, tele-internships and so forth. I mean, if you're in a rural area, there's no reason you can't be doing apprenticeships, internships, getting your credential with a business that may be in Northern Virginia. We've got to think bigger and broader that way. But in order to do that, we need broadband for every single Virginian. And that is really the key. We can't do anything. Children can't get the quality education they need. You can't get the quality job that you need if you don't have access to broadband. As y'all know, I leaned in last time on building the new Virginia economy, 200,000 new jobs. Listen, I'm good at job creation. I've done it my whole life. It's hard to bring a new 21st century technology business to a rural area, even though they want to go there because it's rich in resources, it's beautiful. But if you don't have connectivity, they're not going to go to that region, plain and simple. We all know that. So dealing with these big issues, enough's enough. It is time to go big. It is time to be bold. And it's time to reshape Virginia rural. And we will be a model for the rest of the country, how you rebuild rural communities on education, on healthcare, on infrastructure, all of that. So let's open it up. If you get a chance to all our viewers, it is up now on my website, our plan we have for rebuilding rural Virginia. But if we could, let's go right around. If we could, we'll start, Jordan, with you. Let's go right around and little introduction. And, you understand this. We've talked about rural. You tell us why this is so important.
Absolutely. Thank you, Governor. Excited to be here with y'all today. Jordan Miles is my name. I'm a proud graduate of Buckingham County High School, which is my home. Grew up in a country store, and on my grandparents' farm, and right near there. So I've seen it, I've lived it, and I know Terry McAuliffe understands what we are facing here in the rural parts of Virginia. Also, very blessed to serve with Mayor Owens on the Virginia Tobacco Commission and on Go Virginia Region 3, and lots of other great opportunities. And economic development is a huge point that we need to put a pin in and really focus on that for rural Virginia. There are lots of new opportunities that we can jump on, and I certainly think Terry understands those. As our next governor, he's got a great plan that I've read and that I've looked at, and I fully endorse it. And so that's why I'm here today, to advocate for rural Virginia. Thank you.
Ready for me? Hi, I'm Ed Owens. I'm the mayor of South Boston, Virginia. I'm here today because over the years, I've been on the Tobacco Commission. Now I serve as the chairman of the Tobacco Commission now. We spent hundreds of millions of dollars on broadband. We know that a new economy can't make it without broadband. You can't even get the educational portion there without broadband. And when you talk about jobs of the future, jobs of the 21st century and beyond, you have to have broadband to make it work. And I know this governor recognized it. I know he had some challenges when he was the governor before because people want to come to it, but they weren't trained. We didn't have the trained people to fill the jobs that people were having. You know, he had the opportunity. We give people opportunity. You know, we give access to capital, access to opportunity, they will make it. But until then, we have to, so I endorse, I have not read the whole 114 pages, but for what I have read, the governor is right on target. You need, you know, we need to get behind him and make this work.
Hi, I'm Mary Biggs. I'm Vice Chair of Montgomery County Board of Supervisors. And of course, we're home to Virginia Tech. And what I would like to say is, first of all, I endorse Terry's plans for rural Virginia, and I'm very concerned about rural Virginia. I'm very familiar with Southwest Virginia and Southside Virginia, and I know we have rural areas on the eastern part of Virginia too. And what happened, broadband issue is just critical. You would think in Montgomery County, having Virginia Tech right there, that we wouldn't have had an issue. Well, we did. And we had an issue when students had to virtually learn and they couldn't connect to the internet. We actually had to go and buy like little wagon carts to take out to localities so students could come and connect. We had people working from home and they could not get the kind of experience that they needed to run their businesses and be connected to their companies. And so we're making an effort for that. And along with that, what I want to talk about too are schools. And I want to talk about the fact that when you look at some of the schools in Southwest Virginia, it's totally unacceptable to have buckets in classrooms collecting rainwater.
Amen.
And
same here in Buckingham.
I mean, it's just not acceptable. And the rural counties really struggle with how do you fulfill capital needs and operating needs in their school board budgets. And I guess one of the things that I've been concerned about for so long is the fact that counties only have certain ways, cities and towns too, to raise revenue. But the main one for counties, real estate property tax, regressive, personal property tax. And we're expecting rural areas to use those taxes to pay for the needs that they have. So there's total inequality. Every student in Virginia deserves, no matter what their zip code is, to be able to have a quality education. And we need to be able to attract and recruit educators to rural areas. We don't even have the bonuses that some of the urban areas have to compete to draw educators to their areas. So, I'm passionate about that. We really need to address it. And I know that the governor is very aware of this and has plans to address that. So I'd say broadband, schools, economic development, it all goes together.
Absolutely.
Yep. If you don't have good schools, you're not going to bring good businesses, good high-waged businesses, paying those high wages to your community.
Exactly.
Can't hear you, Governor.
I think Terry's on mute.
Your Excellency, I think you're on mute, sir.
Yeah, I think if you look at our school
There
ages, I think Virginians will be shocked to know that 50% of our schools are 50 years or older, 30% are 60 years or older, and Lee County, the average school age is 65 years old. So even if you have the capacity to bring in new connectivity and broadband, many of these old structures that we have can't handle the increased cable that we need to do. So, I mean, we literally got to tear all the pieces apart and rebuild. And the good news is, I say, with President Biden and the new infrastructure bill, this is bipartisan. We've got to rebuild all these schools. We've got to invest the money. We've got to invest in our teachers. We're down 1,000 teachers in Virginia today. And where do you think they are? They're in rural communities. They're in some of the harder economically hit areas. And that's not fair for substitute teachers. And, that's why we got to lean in on the child nutrition. We got to help on the schools, because until we do that, these students are not going to get the skills. And we need to do a better job with obviously the teleskills. There is no reason we can't be doing a better job with our community colleges and our K-12 and rural, that we're not doing internships with these big companies that like Nestle that I recruited and Amazon. That's what we got to do. But the rest of you, I know Mayor or Jordan, you want to talk about education a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Education, I think public education, that is, has probably been one of the largest inequities that we've uncovered during the COVID-19 pandemic, I think. And I think that we all as public servants have seen that, you know, in many rural parts of where I'm from here in Buckingham County, the school shut down, went virtual. Many homes, many businesses don't have access to that high-speed broadband. You know, we rightly so, we gave our students Chromebooks, but what good is a Chromebook if you don't have access to high-speed internet? I mean not a hotspot, not, you know, so many parents have to take this, they've got to take their cell phone and use it as a hotspot. Yep. That is a huge inequity because that eats up telephone bills and their own fixed incomes, and so that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And I think looking at some of the solutions that you've provided, Governor, that I think it's very, you know, it goes hand in hand with technology. I mean, if we're going to expect students to do well, whether it's at home or outside of the school building, we have got to give them the tools to do well. And again, one of the biggest inequities was the need for more attention to even expansion of pre-K, which I know you support, Governor.
Yep, got to do it.
Yeah, and so education is huge. As I said, if you've got good schools, if you pay your teachers well, which I know the General Assembly gave them a 5% raise, which we supported in our county, you've got, you know, you get what you pay for. And so I firmly believe that was a great move by the General Assembly. And I think we need to do more. I think we need to expand to universal pre-K. I know you've championed that. Governor Kane called for that some years ago, but I think now is time to act, because that age group, you know, third grade reading levels, and I know y'all know this, third grade reading levels, those numbers are so crucial. They are so crucial. That reading level of that child at grade 3 sets the standard for the remainder of that child's educational future. And we've got to really hone in, get good teachers, pay them well because they deserve it. Hey, this is National Educators Week, by the way, so thank them all for what they do. And so, yeah, and I know that's a big part of the governor's rollout plan here in rural Virginia. So public education, I'm all for it. We need to support it.
Well, you got to understand, here in Virginia, and people didn't believe it when I said it, it was actually fact checked correct the other day, that if you take average Virginia teacher pay compared to the average pay of our residents, we're 50th out of 50 states. We're dead last. And really, for a state that is the 9th or 10th wealthiest state in America, we should never be a 50. We should never be in the bottom 2/3 on any. And exactly. I'll be honest, today, you go to Maryland or Delaware or Pennsylvania, you're getting $10,000 to $20,000 more a teacher. You could probably go to Tennessee. If you're in Bristol, you know, you just cross that marker in the middle of the main highway, you could get $10,000 more a teacher. And we've got to really finally do something about it. Let's raise our teacher pay above the national average for the first time ever and get everybody broadband. And you should know, it's not just rural communities, only 51.3% of all of Virginians have access to high capacity connectivity internet. Mayor, education, I know it's a big deal for you.
Yeah, it is. And you hit it right on the head. It's not even a fair playing field when you have, I'm right at the border of North Carolina, 8 miles away, you could be into North Carolina, and you can make $20,000 more a year. A teacher can make $20,000 more a year and doing the very same job in North Carolina. That is not fair. We talk about how our kids, our best and brightest from the rural areas, leave and go to larger cities, have that brain drain.
Right.
That's what we have here at the teacher level. You know, your best and bright teachers, they're going to go where they can make more money. It's only fair to them. They worked hard to get their education.
They got families too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we need to find a way. We've got to be creative, and you know, find a way to give them some incentives to stay in Virginia. You know, some kind of tax credit, some kind of housing credit, something to help them stay in our rural areas.
Well, Mayor, when you read my plan tonight, you fire it up to 135. That's all in that plan under the education section. But
Well, and I just want to say too, for folks out there that are listening, we have the standards of quality in Virginia, and they are not fully funded by the General Assembly. And
yeah,
I think localities annually are paying $4 billion just to go ahead and fund what they have. And there you're going to have another problem with urban areas being able to raise more revenue to fill in the gaps, to fill in the holes versus rural areas. And when the General Assembly says that they give teachers a raise, it's only for standard of quality teachers.
Exactly.
And
Not for
every
everybody.
locality has
That's
more
right.
than that. That's what's so frustrating.
we're with you, Mary. We address that.
Yep.
But you're right. We're down 1,000 teachers today.
Yep.
Let's cut to the chase. Where do you think those 1,000 teachers are, as I say? Really? So why should a student always get a substitute teacher? And other students got a teacher that's there year in and year out. And we should also mention, in addition to all these problems we've mentioned, we now have gone through COVID. And these children, let's be clear, they've lost a year.
Absolutely.
I've got 2 children here. I've still got a senior in high school. And, in the beginning, you go sit in a separate room and get your computer on. Over time it evolved, and sitting on the bed with it open, it's just not the same. We know that. So we're going to have a lot of remedial work to do, especially, and you're right, Jordan, those early grades, that K through
Absolutely,
3.
Governor.
So we're going to have a lot of big challenges going forward, but Mary, we are going to fix this. I have $2 billion a year in my plan to finally pay teachers above the national average. And as you know, for all the locally elected officials, I never did unfunded mandates. I don't believe in that. What used to happen at the state, we'd take credit for doing something, and all we've done is push the tax liability down to the local level. That's not fair. I'm all about fairness. If we're going to do it, no unfunded mandates. And, the state needs to step up and do what we need to do. We've had 8 great years, and Ralph and his team have done a great job. But now with COVID, it's really about implementing it to the next level. And I know we've got TV cameras watching right now and listening to us. I promise you, by the end of my 4-year term, every single Virginian will have access to high quality internet. They will have the connectivity so that every child can learn and everybody can go get a high paying job. I promise you that. I'll make that commitment to you as we do it. But one other issue before we run out of time. So we've got the education, we've got infrastructure, healthcare, huge problem in rural communities. And I talk a lot about it. I got to tell you, every year I went down to Wise for the RAM clinic. And I got to tell you, it was the saddest thing I have ever seen in my life to literally go there. And people had lined up for a day or 2 ahead of time. And by 4 a.m, it's hit full capacity, or people are turned away. But to be walking through that facility, and this is where they offer 1 time a year free dental care for those that don't get access to dental care. And to walk through those converted barn stalls and to see buckets of teeth, because these people had never been to a dentist before. I mean, really, in the United States of America, here in Virginia, and only 8% of the physicians in rural community, only 8% doctors in rural areas. So this is, we got to educate, we got to build the infrastructure, but we got to keep people healthy. And, right. It is a right, not a privilege. And if each of you could take a shot at talk about what you think we need to do here in Virginia to deal with the rural health disparities.
I'll start. I think we need to better fund our federally qualified health centers and create new opportunities for rural Virginia and Buckingham County. Case in point, I'm going to get excited about this. We had 2 doctors' offices during COVID-19. One of them closed. Now we have 1 doctor's office. It's FQHC, but we have no private practice in the whole county of Buckingham County. In 1920, Governor, we had 300 times. We had 300 times the number of doctors. Now we've got 1 place for people to go in Buckingham County. Centera closed up during COVID due to financial issues. Luckily, they are going to gift Buckingham County that building and the land so we can attract and incentivize a private practice there to serve the people of our county. But it's crazy. It's crazy. It is a rural healthcare.
I don't think people actually will believe what you just said, that you only have 1 facility for the entire county to offer healthcare for how many citizens?
Well, we've got 17,000 some odd people living in our county, Governor. But it's 2021. We're in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
How can this be?
Yeah.
And so I do think that investing more in those FQHCs, one of which is in New Canton,
Yeah.
would go a long way. And I think also I also think that the state could give our localities tools maybe to incentivize private practices. In fact, like we have now, like we're going to get the building, and we're going to successfully draw in a private practice to give our people health care.
Well, you read that plan again, because I talk about using the tax code, using tax incentives to keep rural doctors and to incentivize, because doctors would love, I mean, you think of our rural communities, they're beautiful, rich with resources, great quality of life. But if we can just
Absolutely.
offer something to get doctors to go there and get them stay there, you know what? That actually saves the state money. Because if we're keeping people healthy, doing preventive care, and you get to folks early, you know what? That saves the state money over the long haul.
And you're having paved the road for Medicaid expansion.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. That is awesome.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, that always shocked me, that whole debate. The idea we could bring 2.2 billion back, and always made me angry when I went to the RAM clinic, because a lot of the rural legislators who would vote against Medicaid expansion were down walking around the RAM clinic celebrating. There's nothing to celebrate. We could pay for these people to get health care 365 days of the year, not waiting in line to go to some horse stall one day of the year. And you know what? It's about taking care of folks, and let's get everybody quality health care. And if you do it right, it actually saves us so much money in the long run and such a great quality of life.
And Governor, it's directly tied to economic development, because companies, businesses want to be located where you have a hospital. Like, look what happened in Lee County. Yeah. Patrick County doesn't have a hospital. So it affects everything. And you know, I really like the recruitment of getting healthcare workers to stay in rural areas. I think that's critically important. And the other thing I might add, and I don't know if you want this part brought up now or not, but it's also the mental health aspect of healthcare. And transportation is such a big issue in rural areas to get folks to the treatment they need, whether it be for mental health, regular health. Not everyone's connected to broadband, so you can't really do telehealth as much as you might want to. And so, you know, this is a big problem. And I would like to add too, that I don't see the state really investing in mental health the way they should, because there are grants out there for community service boards to compete to get grants just to fund their budgets and to fund their folks that are delivering services. Yeah. And that's just, you know, like, let's make a real investment in our folks.
Yeah. And, you know, we tried hard with the jails. You know, you remember the horrible situation we had and people starving themselves. And, you know, a lot of these folks that go to our jails the overnight, you know, they shouldn't be in the criminal justice system. This is a mental health crisis. So, you know, I put a bill up to pay for mental health providers in every jail. And of course, Republicans, no. But I use executive authority to get a lot of it done. But you're right, Mary, we've got to go big. We've got to invest. We can't, you know, for so many years, like our teachers, they've tried to do things on the cheap. And if you do it on the cheap, you end up paying more money. And many of these issues we have today, if we had that qualified teacher force, but you're right. I remember, and I went down to Lee County, and, you know, legislators down there were not for Medicaid expansion. I said, listen, I'm pretty good at job creation. I can I can get jobs to come. As one guy said, he'd talk an owl out of a tree. I mean, I love doing this, but I'll be honest with you. I can't bring a new business. I'd fly to Japan or whatever to get a company to come, and, you know, like the Merchant House I was able to do down in Bristol. They're not going to go to a community that doesn't have a hospital. They're not, because, you know, if an employee gets a heart attack or whatever, they don't want to be in an ambulance. So you're right. I mean, this is common sense things that we sort of need to do. Mayor?
Yeah, mental health is it's got to be high on the list, though. You know, we've got to get more services. I was one time the chairman of the local community services board, and we see people, like you said, going into jails that shouldn't have been in the jails. So we have to have a comprehensive plan about health. And if we can get the state, federal government partner together, you gotta have a strategic partner because we can't afford it all through state government. I don't think, maybe you know some things I don't,
Yeah.
but if we can, if we can get it all funded through, and get these services that we need, we've got to get them. We've got to have people ready to go on the ground here. We just can't have them sending them 60, 70 miles away from where they are. We're real fortunate here in South Boston. We've got Centera, sorry about that. And we've got many clinics. We got a lot of clinics, a lot of providers, but I just one county over in Charlotte County, you have very few. And so we really need to get our healthcare up to speed for our communities.
You bet. Let's add one more issue I want to go before we go address it in it, which it is really such a difficult issue. And COVID has only magnified it. And I dealt with it as governor. You know, we had the opiate explosion in this country and the fentanyl coming in from China. And, you know, somebody does that fentanyl once or twice, they're hooked. And, you know, it is such a crisis. And I just saw a report. I talked to the governor the other day about it. This COVID has really made it so much worse. And people are at home, and we saw a 65% increase in the opiate deaths. We had 2,000 deaths in Virginia last year, opiate drug related, which is the highest in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And this is symptomatic of all the states in the country who are dealing with this horrible crisis. And, you know, we leaned in, we did a lot of things before, but, you know, any thoughts? I know it affects each and every one of your communities so greatly, this whole problem of the opiate addiction that we have.
It does, and when it puts pressure on our emergency service people.
Yeah. So what do you do, Mayor, to deal with it?
What we do, first of all, we prepare our emergency services people to recognize when there's a opiate problem. Yeah. You know, when you run into a case where somebody's overdosed, to be careful. We've got to give them the Zarcan, have that available for them.
Yeah.
But the training, after all the things you have to do to be trained to be a police officer or EMT, now this is just an added something else. And when you're there and you're trying to save somebody's life, it is a tough situation for our EMTs and our police, because the police sometimes get there way before the EMT.
Absolutely.
And when the police get there, they're trying to figure out, has there been a crime? I think that's their first order of business. But really, they're saying, how am I going to save this person's life without endangering my own? And so we've got to get them trained properly. That's the first and foremost. We got to have them trained and with the proper equipment. Yeah. To address the issue.
I remember, Mayor, you remember that when I convened that big national summit, we got had President Obama send down Vilsack, and we had the governor of Tennessee. We had that big, huge regional, and we brought in governors from the 6 states, because you realize, you know, these drugs move across the borders. This is a problem that affects all of us together. And it really has just been, think of that, 2,000 deaths last year just from opioids here in Virginia. Shocking.
I would add, Governor, that I think one of that lends us to think about how we need to better fund and better structure, and in terms of reimagining our CSBs, you know, community services boards. Bet. I serve on the one here for the Piedmont Health District, and we're seeing a lot of these issues, and you know, the substance abuse prevention, the awareness, the putting money into these things. It's going to take a huge investment, and I do think that if you do it right, you'll slow down all this gun violence. You'll slow down all these crimes that happen once people get screwed up on this stuff. Yeah. I mean, this is serious stuff. I don't think I understand the severity of it, but I do in part to know that we have got to do something different. We've got to sort of reimagine CSBs, I think, as to how we approach this. And the same thing with mental health. I mean, anytime someone has a mental health issue and they do a TDO, temporary detention order, and say a cop has to sit with them. I know for a fact here in the local hospital, there was the patient and the has to have a deputy with them the whole time. They sat in that emergency room for 7 days and nights, 7 days and nights, and that's unacceptable.
Yep.
And I know Ed's heard of stuff like that too from his CSB experience, but
Absolutely.
we cannot have that, and I do think that's the root of all this gun violence we see. I think if you hit that, you would really slow all that down.
Great.
I would like to add to that, Jordan. We have that same issue in Montgomery where the state hospitals are refusing to take someone for whatever reason. So it ties up the person, the patient, the client in the emergency room with law enforcement 24/7, which takes law enforcement out of what they're supposed to be doing. And the person is handcuffed to a stretcher. That's not what you do for mentally ill folks.
Yep.
And that's been a big problem. Now, I chair our New River Valley Community Services Board, and what we've done is we've tried to train as many people as possible, including all law enforcement with Narcan use.
Yeah.
And another thing that I don't know if you all have or not, we have drug courts, and we're lucky enough now that we have them in all the counties that are part of New River Community Services Board. What I would like to see is more investment from the state in the drug courts, because right now a judge has to agree to do it, and localities are putting in money. And one of the big issues is when you're getting these folks through the program, it's an intensive program, and for them to graduate, they need to have a place to live that's away from the environment that they were in the first place that led to the situation. So I'd like to see more of an investment from the state level on that, because like the governor said, a lot of these are not criminal problems, they're mental health problems. And we need to, plus what is it? Walk the walk.
Yeah.
Not talk the talk.
That's it. Yeah. Now you're right. And I'm glad one of our big bills, we were one of the first in the country. I did all of our providers had naloxone, Narcan, anything. Because as you know, if someone is going through this crisis, it's the only thing that will stop immediate death. And, so we ought to have as many of our first responders trained and make it readily available. You could walk into one of our pharmacies if you know someone is in a crisis. But if you inject that naloxone immediately, it saves their life. And if you don't, But you're right, Mary, on the drug courts. Couldn't agree with you more. Many of these folks, the second you get them into the criminal justice system, it's impossible to get them out. And you end up spending, $26,000, $27,000 a year incarcerating someone. Whereas if you had moved them immediately over into a mental health crisis center, and you're going to save the state money and the localities money. I'll say that again, but it's better for society, and it's the right thing to do. And more money for drugs. Couldn't agree with you more. So, all right, we're running out of time. So here we go. I always like to ask this last question: Governor Miles, Governor Biggs, Governor Owens, your governor for the day, and you could do one thing your first day when you sit in that office. What would that be? Be anything you want.
Everybody's shy. I guess what I would want to do, Governor, is I would want to be visible to especially our rural areas, but I would want to do something as far as bringing everybody to the table, administration, General Assembly, and localities, and really addressing some of these problems. And if I could do anything, I think I would first attack the school problems that we have. Yeah. That would be mine. But I want to tell you that folks in rural areas feel left out. They don't see their folks from Richmond. They feel disconnected. And what I'm really concerned about is when this census comes out, rural areas are going to have less representation. So it's even more critical that the administration, the governor, gets out there and gets to these folks.
Yeah. Well, I love to travel on that helicopter flyout. We reduced rural unemployment by nearly 50% in every single rural county in Virginia. But you're right, you got to show up. I used to love to go, if I go to Buckingham County or, South Boston to announce 80, 90 jobs, boy, I love that. I mean, that's like doing 5,000 up here in Northern Virginia. The people are so appreciative. They are so excited. And for those 88 families, that's game changing. You know, they're going to be able to, that's why I loved it. You're right, though. You got to show up.
Show up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Governor Miles, how you feeling?
Well, I think as governor, the first thing I would do is reimagine and retool the way we measure success of our students in public schools. I think we need to get away from standardized testing. I think we need to look at critical thinking. And I think that would be the first thing I would do is sit down with a bunch of people who are much smarter than I am and much more able than I am. I'll put them in a room and say, listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to redo and reimagine how we measure success for our students.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's a lot in the education plan. You know, last time, as you know, we got rid of 5 SOLs, but you're right. Teachers were teaching to test. You know, don't blame them because that's how they were being, that's how they were valued. And our students were learning to memorize. And I got to tell you, that's not helpful. As you know, I always say, I used to build one company I owned 1,000 homes a year. A lot goes wrong when you build a house. A lot of things go into it. Something went wrong. I didn't care what that employee had on their SAT or ACT or, you know what? Did they have street smarts? Could they figure the problem out? Cognitive thought process, critical reason. And if you read my plan, we're going to start teaching that beginning in kindergarten. And we got to get more STEM H and computer science in every grade level. Variety of courses, because if 80% of the jobs of the future require, some types of digital competency, why the heck are we waiting till later in the system? Let's start out early. That's how you recruit businesses, because we're giving them a workforce of the 21st century. Couldn't agree with you more.
Now, my silver bullet for that day, to be governor for a day, would to fix all broadband across the Commonwealth. You've got to get it. I mean, we've got to get last mile, not just backbone. We got to get last mile, and we got to get some critical partners, the operators, the utility companies, the co-ops. Everybody's got to be on board.
Yeah.
So that everyone can get broadband in their home. They don't need to ride down 15 miles to the library and use it as a hotspot. They need it in their own homes.
That's it.
Where they can do the learning that they can't. In every school's got to be connected. I mean, not just 60% or 75%. I mean, a critical mass does not work when it comes to broadband. You've got to get it all done. You got to get everybody that last mile, and you got to get an in-home hookup for them.
Yeah. And we're going to get that done, Mayor. In fairness, we've talked about it long enough.
We have.
And you hear all the excuses from the telcos. No more. We're done with all that.
Right.
You want to do business in this state? You're going to get universal broadband to everybody in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I will do that in my sort of low-key, even-keeled way in the governor's office. I'm looking forward to those conversations. But you're right, we got to do it. So let me thank all of you for being with us today. The rural plan, it's up on Terry for Virginia, as well as 13 other serious policy proposals. But I do want to thank our Board of Supervisors for being with us today. Jordan, thank you, Mary, and our great mayor of South Boston. I do thank you, Ed, and really appreciate everything you're doing. It's going to be it's time to go big and bold. No more tinkering around the edges. Game on.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Governor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.